Welcome to Conversations with the Planets with Lori Kaufman and Alicia Cielle Heiser, a podcast that roots the wisdom of the stars into our lived experiences here on Earth and weaves the power of diverse healing modalities together with astrology.
I'm Lori Kaufman, an astrologer, tarot reader, writer, and teacher. I co-lead the Asteroid Special Interest Research Group for NCGR, an astrology organization, and I offer all different sorts of readings, online and in person.
I'm Alicia Cielle Heiser, an astrologer, herbalist, and witch living in Oregon on Kalapuya land, and I offer astrology consultations and teachings aimed at helping you honor your most authentic self and trust your intuition. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Conversations with the Planets. And today we're going to be talking about the correspondences between the tarot deck and astrology. And we already released an episode about the history of tarot where Lori shared a bunch of really cool research that she's been doing about the history of tarot. And so we highly recommend you go check that out. But then today we're just going to be digging more into the history of how the astrology correspondences came to be with the tarot deck. And Lori, while being an amazing astrologer, is also a very great tarot reader and really is the one who's going to take the lead on this conversation. And so, yeah, hey, Lori.
Hey, yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. I've taught tarot school for the past 5 or 6 years now. And it was a course that I put together a long time ago. And I recently, the past like 6, 7 months, put together a course on the history of ancient tarot and where it came from. And it was an in-person class that I did record, but I really want to create like I want to sit down one day when I have time, which with the book, who knows when that'll be. But I do really want to put together an actual course that is going to be online for you guys if anybody else is
But
interested in diving into it.
if someone was interested in the recordings and wanted to
Mhm.
reach out, are they available to just
Yeah, they're available. They're just like not perfect because like yeah, it I used a really good mic for the first like two, and then like one of them had a bunch of glitchy issues, and
Mhm.
like I was that Mercury retrograde happened right during the class, so a lot of
Okay.
the technology sides of it didn't work great. But yes, the recordings are available for it. I'm just gonna make better ones.
Great. That's awesome.
But yeah, so I think we're gonna split this into 2 episodes and do one on kind of just like a very brief like history of how astrology even got integrated into tarot in the first place. And then I want to do one where we actually break down a little bit more of how the each card in the major arcana got placed with um each sign or planet that it has its association with. Um so basically, if you listen to our history episode, our first episode, we talked a lot about like where tarot actually came from, where it started, and where that kind of left off was that the occultists in England in the mid to late 1800s kind of started to take it over. And they realized a lot of associations in tarot mixed with what they could find from the Kabbalah, and that there's 22 Hebrew letters, and that all associated into the Kabbalah tree of life. And if you took each individual piece of those, there were 22 major arcana cards, and they were like, oh, wait, we can make this. And they actually created the deck as their initiation. So the deck, if you followed the cards in the major arcana, it led you through the Golden Dawn's initiation process.
Mm.
And that was actually what the deck was created for. And then obviously a lot of the guys in the Golden Dawn created their own versions of what they thought the deck should be. So there's a lot of decks that came from the Golden Dawn, and then I'll get into the artistic decks in a minute, but basically the Hermetics deck and the Golden Dawn Tarot are two of the first decks that were created as a form of trying to start piecing together their initiation deck. Obviously Crowley came a little bit later, and then Waite hired Smith, Pamela Coleman Smith, to put together the actual artwork. But there were some other occultists early on too who were part of the Golden Dawn that had a pretty big say. There was Worth and Levy, two of the like other big guys in it who created their decks right before. Ryder created his. And or wait, sorry, not writer. Um and so yeah, the associations actually like really switched over time. And I also want to touch on the minor arcana really quickly too, because they actually weren't illustrated until the Golden Dawn took it over. So this was
Mhm.
around the point of history that they became, it was no longer a card deck, right? Like they were no longer the pips as they're called. They started to notice the associations with the decans in astrology and the angels in the Kabbalah, in Jewish
Like,
mysticism.
yeah.
I don't know much about the angels itself, but if you want to share your screen, I sent over some
Yes.
images right before we started. But yeah, so this is the wheel of the decans. And so basically you can pull into it and see each card has an association with the sign and the all of the different associations that are in there for sure. And then the angels are on the outside of that. And then there's also a page on the angels. And we can dive into that if you guys want more information on this part of it. I'm happy to dive into that on maybe its own episode, but there's kind of a lot in there that I won't
Could be a
I won't
whole
pour into
episode.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Like if I open that can of worms, it'll probably be another hour.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just for now, like that is the sheet, the
And should
cheat
I
sheet.
share the Kabbalah one as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, yeah. So these are the angels, and the cheat sheet for how they found which angel associated with each of the minor and major cards. Because
Great.
there is an angel association with each one. Some people, I guess, really lean into the angels. And I've actually heard that there are oracle decks that are based off of these angels
Hmm.
and do tie back to tarot. I have never personally looked into or used any of those type of decks. So I'm not really sure. I don't know. That's not something I've researched, but I know that that is something that's out there if you're interested in looking into that kind of stuff.
Hey everyone, we are so excited to announce that we will be teaching two upcoming workshops. One all about the moon phases on September 9th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, that will be recorded and made available for folks to review back to or to listen to if they're unable to attend live. But the moon phases are such an incredible way to learn more about your personality and your emotional and physical needs. They're one of the most potent tools for really understanding yourself within a birth chart. And so we'll be going through all 8 phases of the moon and what it means for whatever moon phase you were born under in the sky, as well as different ritual, magical, and herbal ways to connect with the shifting moon phases in the sky each month. And then we're also teaching a workshop on the secondary progressed moon phases on September 23, 2025 at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, And that is an incredible technique for helping you situate yourself within a 28, 29 year cycle of growth and decline within your life, and just will help you learn more about how to work with secondary progressions in general, but especially what is your progressed moon phase, which is just so potent for your shifting and modulating needs and personality as you move through life. And so if you're interested in signing up, you can email Lori at lori.kaufman27@gmail.com. Each workshop is $35 individually or $60 if you sign up for both. And we are really excited that we
Yeah.
are starting to offer these workshops. We'll be offering more workshops in the future. So let
Yes.
us know if there's any particular workshop that you would like to see us offering.
Yeah,
Um,
and of course, feel free to message our Instagram anytime if you have any
yeah.
questions, if there's anything you want to see from us, an episode or a workshop or anything you want to dive deeper into. Yeah, we're super excited to start offering this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really hope to see some of you guys there.
But anyway, so the Hermetics deck is a weird one. It's all black and white and it's just so deeply filled with so much symbolism. Um, and it was a deck that was created during a period of intense like study and seclusion within the Golden Dawn. Um, and so it basically just follows one of their early books very, very closely. Um, and then same with Crowley's deck and the original Golden Dawn Tarot, which is their initiatory deck. Um, and what happened originally is all of the occultists that were part of the Golden Dawn, they noticed the association with the 22 Hebrew letters and started to slowly piece together these cards. And so they took the magician as card one and they placed it with Aleph, which is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And it was originally associated with an element. It's now associated with Uranus, but Uranus wasn't found yet. It wasn't discovered. So actually, that's a question I get a lot. Um,
Wait,
what
when are you talking? Because by the time the Golden Dawn were around, Uranus would have been discovered.
Yeah, it was, but
Or
it
you mean like
wasn't,
way?
it was like put in later. So,
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, let me word that a little bit better. When the Kabbalah was originally like
Okay.
created as a system, um, it was Aleph, and then let me get the two other ones. Um, Mem and oh my God, I can't read that. It's being weird. I don't know, I can't get it to work. But there were three Hebrew letters that they didn't have a planet for or a sign, so they just placed an element with it. And
Okay.
then later, when tarot took it over and all of the associations changed, they realized, oh, we have three elements instead of four. And there's actually three more planets that have been discovered. So that's when those got filtered into it. Um, so the Fool, for example, is now card zero, but originally the Magician was the first card. So what they actually did was they placed Aleph with the Magician, and they started to redraw the Magician to make an Aleph with his arms. So he was literally in the shape of the Hebrew letter. And that eventually ended up evolving into the as above, so below, pointing up and down that he currently
Hmm.
does. Um, because it like became a little more natural. But in the original decks, he was seen as creating that Aleph letter, and he was actually associated with the element air. But then when Waite and Pamela Smith came in and decided they basically shifted everything down one, and they said actually the Fool should be card 0, which should go at the beginning, and they made the Fool associated with Aleph, and so that became the element of air association. But at that point, Uranus was discovered, so they
Hmm.
put Uranus with the Fool.
Okay.
Does that all make sense? I feel like I kind of
Yes,
went
that
a little bit of a
makes
backwards way of explaining that, but
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. And so then, as they shifted each one up, they then gave Mercury to the magician, and then so on and so forth. They also changed the order because traditionally strength and justice were in a different order back when they used to just like use it as a game, but they realized that it would fit better and make more sense in um the order of having the astrological symbols if they switched it for Leo and Libra.
Okay.
So, yeah, which makes a lot of sense because the Justice card being put with Libra doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And, or sorry, with Leo doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay, I was
And
gonna
the
say it makes a
Strength
lot of
card,
sense.
yeah, yeah, no, I said that backwards. But yeah. And then strength being put with Libra didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So once they realized, like, oh, let's just switch the order of these two, and then they'll be in perfect chronological order. That's why when you look at Marseille style decks or like older, more ancient styles of tarot, especially if you're in any country other than America, you're going to see that very commonly as strength is actually card 11 instead of 8, and justice is actually card 8 instead of 11.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
do you want to talk a little bit about like you're kind of just touching on it, but going even deeper into like what was the Golden Dawn's process and like Rider-Waite's process in deciding these correspondences and moving things around? Because
mhm.
like one of my big things that I always come back to is that we should be drawing our own intuitive correspondences and going off of
Yeah.
correspondences that other people make can be a great starting point and a really great
Hmm.
inspiration, but it's not that like these guys were incredible experts who wrote down the law and we just have to follow their correspondences. Like they were humans within a specific like cultural context and historical time, drawing associations that made sense to them.
Hmm.
And just like I just want to encourage and invite everyone
Yeah.
listening to this podcast to also be forming their own correspondences with tarot and astrology as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, the Golden Dawn, they were some weird dudes. And they really, truly just kept trying to like place a bunch of systems together that maybe boxed it in a little bit too much.
Mm,
And I do think that there is a lot of wisdom to associating all of these signs and stuff, and I see so much in it, but a lot of it also feels very made up at times too.
hmm.
And a big thing that I did in this course was the first class was just kind of like a deep dive into what is the occult, what is the history, where did it come from, what is this, what are we talking about? But I spent every class doing a full deep dive into 4, maybe 5 of the cards. And we just like talked about the entire history of like hundreds of years of like the progression of like where did the magician start? Where did it end up? When did it became or when did it become the Marseille, right? Like when the printing press was invented, how did that affect this card when it became archetypal and not just like your community's weird magician who lived down the street and would entertain you at the bar when you were drunk, right? Like it became an archetype rather than an actual person in your life or an actual like silly uncle that you drew into the card deck, And when it became archetypal, that was kind of like the first step of how the astrology ended up becoming what it is, or how the whole system ended up becoming what it is. And the occultists were really, truly looking for meaning in everything. And that's kind of when all of the associations started to kind of blur together. And like Crowley too was a weird dude to say the least. And so he had his completely own version of everything, and everything he did with it was very different than the directions that like Waite took with it, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because Waite, I definitely think put a lot more weight into his thought process with it. He put a lot of he was very methodical, and I see his side in shifting the cards over one because I do feel like the astrological associations make a lot more sense with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that we all know and love today. Um, but that's definitely not where it started. And so it is really interesting to kind of keep an open mind of like the magician card started as the element air and now it's associated with Mercury. So how has that changed it? Or a card I think about a lot actually is Temperance
Mm-hmm.
because it was originally placed with Scorpio. And I just like think about how desire also kind of makes no sense with the original meaning of temperance being like to temper your wine, right? Like to literally like tone down the wine so it's drinkable. Like that felt more Taurus to me rather than its opposite Scorpio. But then it got placed with Sagittarius, which felt even like more of a stretch until you start to look at the way that he changed the card into it being more of an alchemical influence rather than like the literal pouring of water into wine. When it became more of an alchemical statement, it was this element plus this element is now poured and it creates its own new thing. So it's like A plus B equals C rather than water being poured into wine makes the wine more drinkable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's like each card actually has an entire story of how it changed and shifted over time like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the astrological associations being paired was definitely a lot to think about. But
Yeah.
it also like is so profoundly made up.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it is a bit of a stretch. And I hope that like, that sent me into a little bit of a spiral at first when I like started doing this research and started like finding that. But I actually think it kind of frees you from it too, because I still like, I still read it like Rider-Waite. Like I still see it in that way and I still use those astrological associations because that's just like how I've memorized the cards and that's how I like have the deep understanding. But also like there are times where I'm giving a reading to somebody and I'm like, "Oh, actually, the more ancient manifestation of this
Yeah.
card might actually make more sense." And use your intuition because like some cards changed so drastically much. And like the Hermit actually is a perfect example of that because we were talking about that before we started recording. It is placed with Virgo, the sign Virgo in the Rider-Waite deck. But it was originally placed with Leo. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And before the Golden Dawn, they actually called that card Saturn. It was Kronos. It was an image of Saturn crippling around on crutches and often was depicted with like his knee gashed open so he couldn't walk. And it was supposed to be a card of like wisdom that you learn from living your life. But then, being at the end of your life and being like, oh my God, this really wore down my body, but I like learned so much from these things that wore down my
Mm-hmm.
body, right? And you like, and then it just became this like spiritual teacher who's on a bit of a retreat and placed with Virgo. So it's like, that's a totally different card.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think too, just like of how tarot is a living practice, right? And the cards
Hmm.
have their own constantly shifting and shaping meanings and like the
Right.
historical context that we're living in now in the 21st century is different than where the golden dawn were, and wherever you are located geographically or socioeconomically or like racially or culturally, like we're all coming from different places and we're going to
Yeah.
relate to the cards in different ways. And even at different points in your life, like Lori constantly pulls the Hierophant card, and I'm
Oh.
sure that that had different meanings to you when you were 25 than it
Yeah.
might now, and then also probably some of the same meanings. But like letting the cards
Yeah.
kind of, that's the power of the tarot, is that because it's
Yeah.
images, like in that moment, it's going to pull on your subconscious and
Right.
pull the meaning out that needs to be. And especially like if you're reading tarot for clients or for other people, like the Hierophant might pull something out of Lori for one reading and then something for a
Yeah.
different reading, and they're going to show what needs to be shown in that moment.
Yeah.
So giving them a lot of flexibility, and then
Hmm.
having, and even with astrology, right? Like having a depth of understanding of how do you approach Pisces if it's ruled by Neptune in a modern
Right.
understanding versus ruled by Jupiter from an ancient understanding. And if you know about both, then that just gives you a much deeper understanding of Pisces. Whereas Lori's talking about, the tarot cards, her having that deep understanding of the different
Yeah.
ways the hermit has been used throughout time, then just gives you so much more to pull on.
Right.
But you also can just pull from your own intuition as well. Like what's
Right.
coming out of that image that's calling to
Yeah.
you in this moment, and where's that meaning? Because that to me is
Yeah.
most important.
I agree. And I think it's also super important to note that you're going to create a relationship with the cards. And actually, something that I've done, it's actually sitting right next to me, so I'll just show you guys. Um, I bought this 5-year journal and I write my card of the day in this piece up here and like in the margins. And then I've kept this as a daily practice. And I'm on year 7 right now. Here's my second book is also sitting right next to me. So I have the card that I've pulled every single morning for 7 years, like sitting right next to me right here. And so sometimes I've noticed that like, oh, every day that I pull this card, this seems to happen. And then I've been professionally full time doing readings for other people for 5 years now or so. And I've also noticed patterns in that, and sometimes you start to gain a relationship with the cards where, like, the Queen of Cups, for example, comes out anytime, usually a woman, is not taking care of herself. Anytime the answer is literally self-care. Stop pouring your cup into other people without pouring into you. And that's just what that card means to me right now, is at this point, is that like anytime the bottom line of a reading has been, hey, you actually need to take care of yourself because you trying to pour into other people is not going to fill your cup, she comes out every time. And I've noticed the Hierophant comes out a lot in the sense of marriage. If somebody's asking if they're going to end up with a person, he comes out every time. And like anytime somebody asks about a romantic connection, and if he comes out upright, it means yes, like go for it. If he comes out upside down, it's usually a no. And there's like occasional moments where he won't come out at all, and I'm usually shocked by that. And it's like, oh, maybe you're not supposed to know or something, you know?
Mhm.
But I almost like look for him when I have clients come asking those questions, and it like sure enough works every single time. And so you start to develop these like really weird relationships with cards. Like I never would have thought I would see the Hierophant as like somebody's soulmate card, but like for some reason, without a doubt, like it just comes out
Mhm.
every time. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's like now the relationship I have with this card, and it's telling me to tell this person. this, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of how it evolves, I think.
And that, we did a episode on Intro to Planetary Magic where
Mhm.
we talked a lot about correspondences, and particularly I'm an herbalist, so ways to draw correspondences between different herbs and astrology.
Mhm.
And like what I always come back to when I'm teaching people about correspondences is relationships, right? Which is exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? Like correspondences are the strongest when you develop your own relationship. Like if you develop a relationship with St. John's wort and see it blooming around the summer solstice and like make St. John's wort oil and see the way that it
Hmm.
turns bright red when you put it in the sun, your understanding of St. John's wort as a solar herb is much stronger than if I don't know
Right.
if Culpeper says St. John's wort is a solar herb, but if Culpeper does, you just read it in a book, that doesn't mean as much as if you like really form that relationship and see that. And it's the
Yeah.
same with the tarot. And so it's really taking time to get to know the planets and the planets'
Yes.
archetypal energy, the zodiac signs, the tarot cards, and forming your own relationships and drawing your own correspondences that may be the same as what Rider Waite drew, or maybe inspired by it, or maybe completely different.
Yeah.
That's going to be much more powerful than if you just take point blank, like, oh, these experts said that this equals this. So that's what I'm going to go with. It's just so much more when you have relationships involved.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of what they were trying to do too when they made the associations in the first place. I
Mm-hmm.
think they were really trying to like systematize it and make it like fit into a bunch of different boxes, which I think in some ways like is really cool that they were able to do that and that it fits as well as it does and that you can get so much profound information from all of that. But I also think there's also a side of it where it's kind of a bit of a like a pigeonhole, like it like keeps you
Mm-hmm.
a little too stuck in the box of like, oh, this is the way that it has to be. And it's like, well, no, that's just the
Like
Rider
that's,
Waite
yeah.
version. Um, Actually, I think the Chariot's a really interesting example of that too, because the Chariot was always seen as like a card of victory, and it was shown as this like very like Mars card, like very martial. But then, when everything shifted, it was, it's obviously now a card of Cancer, which kind of makes no sense unless you start to think of it as like the crab that carries its shell on its back. Like, its home is on its back, so you can go anywhere and find home within anything. Um, or maybe there's a victory in going out to find something. Um, but yeah, it was definitely one of those cards that changed a lot, and it was originally placed with Gemini. So
Mm-hmm.
that also like what?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's just funny because it like traditionally went from being such a like martial energy and like war based to Gemini to Cancer.
Yeah. Different meanings and relationships by different people.
Exactly.
Well, so we're gonna record another episode just digging more into the major arcana and
Hmm.
the associations there. Do you have anything else before we wrap up, like this quick little history episode?
I don't think so. Did you have any other questions
No.
or things you thought I missed?
No, I
I
thought that
feel like
was
there's
very
so
thorough.
much.
Yeah,
Okay.
we could be here for hours. We could do a whole, maybe
I
we
know
will do a whole
that's the
series on
problem.
this eventually.
Yeah, maybe.
Um,
There's just yeah, there's so much involved that it can be hard to kind of pin it down.
yeah. And then I just wanted to quickly share before we wrap up for
Mhm.
folks who are listening to this live as it comes out that we are having a moon phases workshop together on September 9th, 2025. It's virtual. And then we'll be recording it as well and making it available for folks after the fact. So if you can't attend it live, you can still get it. And it's just really digging into what each of the 8 phases of the moon mean, what it means for the phase you were born under, how to connect with the moon phases each month in the sky through different ritual practices and herbal practices. And the moon phases, I think, are a really slept on tool in astrology for really understanding your personality and your emotional and physical needs. They're just so profound to work with. And this is our first workshop that we're teaching together. So we're really excited
Yeah,
about that.
super
And
excited.
we're also going to do one on the progressed moon phases on
Mm-hmm.
September 23rd at the same time. And that really helps situate you within a 28, 29-year cycle of whether you're in a place of growth or decline and what your progressed moon is saying about how your life kind of shifts and modulates over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're interested in signing up for that, you can email Lori at lori.kaufman27@gmail.com. Each workshop individually is $35. If you sign up for both, they're $60. And we're planning on doing more workshops in the future about Saturn. If there's any other workshops that you would like to see us teach, please let us know.
Yeah,
But
please
we're
let
really
us know.
excited to be kind of expanding what we offer. And we hope that we can see some of you guys in the workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
Awesome.
all for now. So, yeah, stay tuned and we'll be releasing the Major Arcana episode next week. So, thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any personal stories to share or thoughts and reflections about what we discussed in this episode, please comment down below or reach out to us on Instagram. And please come follow us on Instagram at ConversationsWPlanets, where we share forecasts and updates about the astrological movements happening in the sky, as well as updates about our episodes. The link to our Instagram is in the show notes down below.